of our hopefully series of podcasts for the Make It Personal podcast. And I've got my good friends and colleagues here from many years in the FBI and through different jobs that each of us have taken after those initial careers and continue to be friends and colleagues today. And thank them for joining. And hopefully we get Eric back on board again here. But I wanted to have each of them just make a quick introduction of themselves, and then we'll get into the meat of the exchange. So Keith, if you can take the floor, please.
Dan, it is such a pleasure to be invited on to the inaugural podcast here. Thanks for the invite. For people that don't know me, I'm Keith Malarski. I worked with Dan for many, many years at the FBI. I was a 20-year FBI agent before retiring and going to Ernst & Young for a number of years, leading their cyber threat management. And now I am joined by my colleague that's also here, Tom Grasso, where we work together at Q-Intel, where I am the Chief Global Ambassador.
Great, thank you. Tom, if you can take the floor.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. Really appreciate you asking me to come on this and connect with old friends and talk about these important topics. My career is very similar to Keith's, except with less retirements. I just retired once. I was from the FBI after doing 20 years, and went over to Q-Intel. Keith and I are there now, and we're pretty much doing the same stuff we did when we were in the FBI. We're chasing the bad guys around the internet, collecting intelligence on them, and that goes over to our customers, whether they're government or private sector. They use it for defensive purposes or to track the bad guys, whatever it might be. So as I like to say, we're still in the fight.
Great. Eric, I don't know if you can hear. It looks like you're connected on the voice side. If you are, if you can introduce yourself. If not, we'll come back to you for a follow-up introduction a little later on.
Yeah, I'm here, Dan. Yes, this is appreciate the opportunity. I do have to say everybody sounds like Mickey Mouse, so I'm just going to be smiling the entire time that I'm doing this. Again, Eric Strom. I am I worked with Tom, Dan, and Keith for quite a while. Like those guys, I was a 22-year special agent with the FBI. After I retired, I went to AWS and ran their cyber threat intelligence team for about 4.5 years. And recently I moved over as a managing director of cyber threat intelligence for Kroll. Happy to be here.
Great. Thank you. All right. Kind of laying the foundation to tee this discussion up. Again, the title of this podcast is Make It Personal. And I think each of the participants in this discussion have had a lot of history in doing that over the course of their careers, and I think they still do it today. And so it's a key ingredient to the successes I think we've all been able to enjoy, where we've been able to find those key partners out there across the globe, literally, that we've embraced and brought into the sort of the extended family of resources that have helped us identify and bring some level of impact to cyber criminals across the world. So we're going to talk a little bit about some of that and some of the things that worked, and hopefully we're not going to, we're going to try to avoid reinventing any wheels out there that are being already adequately addressed, and talk about some good things that we can focus on repeating that still work today, and how we can do more to basically go after and hopefully bring impact to the threats that are out there today and that are always evolving and changing, as we all know. So with that said, I have a few teed up questions that I asked the participants to consider. So I'm going to start right in with those and ask Keith if you can address this. First of all, if you had to focus, one of the things that we used to do is get together with the team and talk about, hey, where should we focus our efforts? What are the things that we need to bring impact to that we otherwise are not doing, where the bad guys are either winning or doing something substantial that we should make a concerted effort to focus on. So with that kind of out there, Keith, what would you say to that today?
Yeah, I think, the biggest thing, what we always did at the NCFTA when we were there was really listen to industry and hear what industry is seeing. And then from a law enforcement partnership, and then even just from an industry partnership, really just kind of understand what they think is the biggest threats and where they can make an impact on. So listening to those focus groups, whether that be in an ISAC or different listservs or different information sharing, to understand what that threat is, who has some visibility, and how they could impact that. So that's kind of like the first step. And one of the things that we're seeing out there right now, if we were thinking about doing some kind of an impact thing, just what I've been seeing is, with identity right now, as they're saying, is the new perimeter, out there where, there's all these stealer logs out there, that are being collected. And then we're seeing then these initial access brokers selling access, on the dark web out there. There was just a big impact, a big global impact with Europol and a bunch of private industry partners, that just went after the I think it's called Tycoon 2FA. I always screw that up with Salt Typhoon, but Tycoon 2FA, where it was a big takedown, going after some of the big phishing kits. And so really kind of focusing on identity I think would be, a really good project right now if people were thinking about stuff. But again, just back to what I was saying, it's really important to really just understand what industry's seeing out there and really understanding what the threat is, and then bringing those SMEs together to come up with solutions to tackle the problem.
Great. Good start there. Now, Eric, if we can ask you to kind of chime in on the same question again, that is, if you had to focus your efforts on one potential impact area, where would that be? Can be from your perspective at Kroll today, or what you draw on from your history with the FBI or other places. So you've got the floor, or you had the floor, and then you lost the floor. All right. Well, we'll come back to Eric. And so, Tom, if you can take that and run with it too. I know that's one thing that you've considered, I think, quite a bit through your career, and I'm sure still do today. Eric, we've moved over to Tom, and Tom, you're on mute. So if you can unmute, then that would sound even better.
Yeah. Thanks, Dan. I think following on to what Keith said, that was really important to us, the methods that we followed, and it was really going to our private sector partners and finding out what was giving them heartburn, what was causing them pain, and having them direct us in law enforcement to use our resources to go after what the real problems were. We could try to assess it ourselves, but we were not the experts at the time, because we weren't having to deal with these threats on a daily basis in terms of protecting our customers, protecting our users, protecting our business. It was really in the hands of private sector to do that. So we really relied on them to outline what the priority matters were. And, that opened up the door for us to, go to them and say, hey, help us with this then. If you're telling us this is a big problem and you need to see law enforcement, whether it be FBI or any law enforcement agency out there, HSI, Secret Service, whoever it might be, spin up a case and dedicate investigative resources to this, you need to help us with it. You need to share the intelligence that you have, right? Because that's the part that we were always missing. We have the legal tools in the government. We could acquire information, we could collect that information, with whatever it might be, serve court orders, subpoenas, search warrants, all that type of stuff. But we didn't have the raw intelligence. And I think that's the vital role that private sector has to play, is they bring that raw intelligence to the table and the expertise. They bring the expertise to the table. that the government needs.
Well, you hit on a couple things that are going to be teed up in the next question, so we'll hold on that for a second. But that's a good potential transition there. So if we can come back, Eric, if you can hear me, um, asking again, if you had to focus efforts, today on one area of potential impact, where might that be? And we lost that. Okay, Tom. So you did tee up the intelligence factor, and one of the other things that you mentioned was getting law enforcement involved, and I think that does open up a new can of worms for us to consider as to how to do that and who that would be, who in the law enforcement community that should be, and how do we get them engaged, and how do we get them in a sustained manner engaged for the long haul. But when we talk about the critical intelligence that is always key, who's likely to possess that intelligence? And you said industry is going to be a key player in that. And how do we help tap into that intelligence pool more effectively than we are today and maybe going forward?
Yeah, well, I think if you're working in law enforcement, if you're on the law enforcement side of that equation, then what you need to do is you need to make it easy for private sector to share intelligence with you. You need to assure them that you're going to keep the information private and confidential. Treat them with confidentiality with the information they're providing you, and you also have to. Although many of them, I want to say, they're just doing this because it's the right thing to do. They want to share information with law enforcement because they want to see something done about these threats in a more permanent manner than just, the technical solutions they have. So they want to share for that reason. They want to provide that intelligence. But I think it really helps if the government can give something back. Okay, so if you can be providing information back to them in terms of what you're learning from your cases as you're doing these investigations. And let's say that you arrest a cyber criminal and you interview that cyber criminal subsequent to that arrest. I mean, you're going to learn a lot of stuff from that. And that could be really valuable information to push back to the private sector. The other thing I'm going to say is because and this is really important, and I think we really worked hard on this, Dan and Keith and Eric, when we were in the FBI to do this. But these people are spending time out of their day to collect information that they're going to voluntarily turn over to the government because they want to see the government do something good with it. You really need to give them feedback on that. You just can't say, hey, yeah, thanks for that information. Cool. We'll talk to you in a month or so. You really need to give them feedback. And, and sometimes the feedback might be, no, that's not the information we need. That's not helpful. We actually need this other type of stuff for this problem. But I think you really need to be honest with people, but you also have to be willing to keep them updated on how your case is progressing, what you're doing with what they provided. And, that's what makes the whole thing work. People really want to be part of the team. They want to be part of the effort. And they want to, if they're taking time to give you something, they want to know that it's going to some good. So you just need to keep people informed.
And I think from the other, just kind of add in onto that, Tom was kind of talking about that from a kind of a law enforcement perspective. From an industry perspective, when I was in the FBI, I thought everybody shared information with the government, based off of the unit that we were in. And then I went over to industry, and everybody was like, no, we're not sharing anything with the government. So I think it's really important from an industry side to really be able to share what you can. Because the government really doesn't care about the PII information that you collect. They're really interested in threat information and being able to get attribution and build cases. So I think work with your counsel or establish personal relationships and be able to share what you can with the government of what you think it's important out there and kind of start those steps and build the trust, because really at the end of the day, information sharing is built around trust, and it's important to build that.
Yeah, key point, and thanks for bringing that out, because trust is, we found it to be so vital in these relationships. Again, you can't just mandate that, hey, we've done that. We've seen people do that. We are the FBI, or we are law enforcement. Just, you're going to want to partner with us or want to hang out with us because we're really cool, or we're the premier agency, blah, blah, blah. You got to reciprocate, Tom. So good feedback there on finding ways to give back and to give back things that can be meaningful to those wonderful sources that we've developed, and intelligence partners that we've developed who need something back. And as you said, what we get through debriefings of subjects as to how they exploited the system in the first place. How can industry shore up their defenses and not become victims again? That's very valuable information that I think they find great for the partnership to say, hey, we're getting something out of this. It's not just because we did the right thing because it's the right thing to do. It's really helping us get better at what we do. And if they need to monetize or to quantify that in some way that is a monetary gain for them, there's a way to do that too. So I think being mindful of what that benefit is that we can help them achieve from that relationship would certainly help sustain that. So again, you guys teed up some good things that we're going to get into, I think, in a lot more detail in succeeding episodes, where we talk a little bit more about, maybe a lot more about the law enforcement partnerships and how to sustain those. How do we keep them involved and interested, and how do we get this message sort of can not only conveyed across those key players in law enforcement, but how does it take root or become part of their makeup and how they do things? Because as we know, that pendulum shifts quite often back and forth between doing good things and then reverting back unfortunately to the methods and means of the past that didn't work, that unfortunately get repeated too often. So anything else in the intelligence arena, Keith, that since you teed that up too, based on Tom's intro, as far as sources that we can look to embrace that we maybe haven't thought of yet?
No, I mean, I think we covered that pretty broadly. Yeah.
Okay. So, in putting together a team to move on these threat actors in a meaningful way, a couple of things. Who needs to be part of that? And is there a current common place that these folks get together that we should be mindful of? You mentioned ISACs as one that might be considered. And I had listed like IFCI was always a good one in the past that we had worked with because they are an international group of financial crimes investigators that involve industry and law enforcement. But there are other organizations out there that are doing some good things. And are there a couple that we should kind of consider revisiting or re-embracing that maybe we haven't done as much with as we should? So I'll throw that out to Tom first. Sorry.
Yeah, all those organizations that you mentioned, Dan, are really excellent to get involved with if you're in private sector and you want to be able to collaborate and share. I think those are all great ideas. My personal favorite is where we all got to meet each other is at the National Cyber Forensics and Training Alliance, and which is in Pittsburgh and New York City, which I think is really a model for this type of collaboration and information sharing. It gets all the right people under the same roof. So you're having law enforcement, you're having private sector, academia, everyone working under the same roof. And not just like where the tempo is something like, hey, let's get together once a month or get together once a quarter. This is like a daily thing. People are reporting to work there every day, and they represent these pillars of our society: private sector, academia, and government. I think that NCFT is really the model for making that happen. In terms of the other part of your question, which is, hey, well, what are the right people that you want involved with this? It's the people at those organizations that can make stuff happen in the cyber world. Okay, so from the government law enforcement side, it's going to be your cyber investigators, your analysts, your experts in that area. And from the private sector side, it's going to be who are those threat researchers, people from different threat teams there at organizations, their network security experts, the people that really are not only there to see what's attacking them, what's impacting their networks, but are also there when information comes from somewhere else about here's how you defend it against it. Okay, now here's the person that can flip the switches and pull the levers to defend against that and stop that attack. I think those are the type of people that you want involved.
Yeah, and Tom, there's another national security facility down there in Huntsville too, right? Todd Berriman leads, and I can't remember the name of that, but that's a good one to get out there too. That's kind of like the same bit on looking at APT threats. Do you remember what the name of that is?
Yeah,
I can't remember.
I wish I did. It's
Yeah,
I can't remember right now. Sorry.
You mean
yeah.
separate from the Bureau of Space out there in Huntsville?
No, it is part of the Bureau of Space down there where they've set up, where they've brought in different clear defense contractors and others looking at national security threats down there. And I just can't, for the life of me, remember the name of the facility down there. But that's another good one too.
Yeah, good. I mean, I heard good things about what in part what they're doing out there. So I think that's a great idea to kind of help reconnect with those folks and see what else we can leverage or be part of or maybe help with. That be part of that going forward. Now I know this is sort of a curveball for you guys and didn't have it on my script yet, but
We love curveballs, Dan. Throw it at us. Let's go. It's baseball season.
yeah, right. It is. So there's an office of the private sector or something along those lines, right? That I know one of our good colleagues from the Bureau and from industry was heading that up for a number of years. And then apparently that continues today. And actually I talked to one of the folks who's part of that just last week. He was a former agent in the Pittsburgh FBI office, coincidentally. Do you all have any interface with those folks, or are you aware of anything that they're doing that should be part of a sort of a re-engagement, with at least with the FBI or with that group? That makes sense.
I personally haven't had any interaction, so I wouldn't be able to speak to that intelligently.
Yeah, I wish Eric was here. I wish the technology gods were letting him stay on the call here, because I think he was part of that group right before he retired. But yeah, it's carrying out an important mission in the FBI, and I think that the best way for private sector to here's the bottom line with all this stuff. If you're in private sector, if you're running a company or you're a network, you're one of these people we were just talking about earlier. You're a network security person, you're a threat hunter, whatever it is for some corporation, some business in private sector. You want to develop contacts in law enforcement that can help when a cybercrime problem happens. Okay, so there's between the Secret Service, HSI, FBI. There are many of these federal law enforcement agencies that have very talented and well-equipped teams that are ready to help you with the different threats that you're faced with. Make friends in those places, whether it's the Office of Private Outreach that Dan was talking about, or it's NCFTA, or it's just contacting your local HSI office and developing a contact there, contacting your local FBI office, finding out the contacts there that are involved with cyber. Find out who those contacts are, because those real people contacts that you're going to have locally are the ones that are going to be able to help you get involved with whatever the program is. I know, the Secret Service, for instance, they have their ECTF, Electronic Crimes Task Force. FBI offices, they all have an InfraGard program. So there's many different ways to get plugged into these different things. And they could also, those same people can point you to organizations like NCFTA, because all of those agencies that I just mentioned are well represented at the NCFTA, National Cyber Forensic and Training Alliance, and can help get you plugged in through there. So I guess what I'm saying, and maybe this was because I was lonely when I was an FBI agent, make a friend in federal law enforcement. Call your local FBI, Secret Service, HSI, whatever it might be, office, and make a friend there.
All right, so Tom, are you starting a Friend of Fed campaign? Is that what it is? Is that what we're doing? Yeah.
That'd be a website soon.
Friend of Fed. Let's go. Let's register that domain right now. Yeah.
Well, I have to say,
Keith, we were trying to think of the operation in Huntsville, which is again another great thing for private sector to get involved with. It's at Redstone Arsenal.
Yeah.
National Defense Cyber Alliance.
There we go. Yeah.
Cyber Alliance. Dan, I think we can put some links to some of these different things in the footnotes for the podcast. NCFTA, National Defense Cyber Alliance, all of those different things.
let me ask you, who leads that? Is that the National Defense Cyber?
I'm pretty sure it's an FBI operation. I mean, it's a joint effort, like NCFTA. It's a joint effort between law enforcement and private sector. But down there, the private sector is people focused on the defense industry side of things,
Right.
and the law enforcement government side, I think, is primarily FBI. Although I probably shouldn't say that because I really don't know for sure. And there may,
Yeah.
I would be surprised if there weren't other federal law enforcement entities like NCIS and DCIS, the folks that are on the defense side of federal law enforcement. I bet they're involved with that as well.
Well, NCIS has a show and DCIS doesn't. So,
It's all about ratings, Dan. It's all about ratings. So.
Well, we'll dig into that and find out a little more about who actually leads that. And I think, as you said, it makes sense that they would have more of a national security focus there, given the Defense Department, nexus there, and obviously it was an army base at Redstone. And I know that a lot of different things were there over the years that have moved out to different parts of the country, but that's a whole other story. So. A couple of things just to build on too, as far as potential re-engagements. Obviously, NCFTA is a big part of everything that both I and we all did over the years, and obviously a big fan of that. But are there any other similar entities out there that are doing good things that we should be thinking about plugging into? In addition to them, like for instance, you said ISACs there, Keith. I know 15 years ago or so, the MS ISAC was actually doing some good things, the multi-state ISAC. So they were actually coming together and actually working on sharing intelligence and building cases. So there was more of a functional, roll up your sleeves and get something done approach that they were taking. And I was a big fan of that. Where some of the other ISACs out there were a lot more form over substance, at least for their early days. I don't know if they've changed, but are there any others that are out there, or any like those that we should all also think about re-engaging or engaging? Keith, I'll throw it to you.
I don't know off the top of my head. I mean, I obviously, the financial, the FI ISAC, the aviation ISAC. I know, we know a lot of people on both of those. I'm just not involved in the day-to-day ISAC in information sharing as I, was back when I was at the BU.
Okay. Tom, anything in that regard?
Yeah, I have to say I'm really, NCFTA centric because it's right down the road for me here in Pittsburgh, and it does everything that I need in terms of these sharing types initiatives. Yeah, so there's plenty of others out there, and they are all doing great jobs. But
Hmm.
I, I, I I see NCFTA as the kind of the founder of this whole idea and kind of the model for it, the model for it, and that's what I'm most familiar with. But yeah, so long story short, no, I can't really give you some details on the other organizations out there.
Okay, well, we'll dig in a little more with a few other folks and see if any others pop up, and maybe we'll bring them in. If there are, bring them in for for a role in succeeding podcasts to talk a little bit about what they're doing and what we might embrace in their initiatives that might make sense. For teeing up where we're headed next, I just wanted to throw this out there. I did mention this briefly, but for the next episode, I think there's a pretty strong desire to get into the technical weeds a little bit more. Again, the cyber threat actor community out there is always at some level focused on the technical exploits that they can bring to bear and where the weaknesses are in the different systems that are being deployed. And as we know, the shiny ball mentality, rush to market sort of mentality that's out there with new products and new services seems to always kind of carry the day, where people want to get things in their hands before they've worked out the full measure and means of how to lock it down or how to secure it. So that's where the bad guys continue to exploit things and will. So we're gonna try to tee up a little more detail through some of the guests that we'll bring on for those succeeding podcasts. We got a couple of good suggestions of people that can help drive that discussion. Also, we want to get in the weeds a little bit more on where we're headed. Obviously, everyone is very focused and interested on where the AI world is. It's obviously a changing and evolving rapidly world. There's been some pretty good stories out there, in the recent, media coverage from different, news article or news magazines and such that have talked about a number of companies that are actually stepping up and sort of leaning into becoming more proactive in their partnerships with different facets of the government in trying to identify where their services are being exploited, where the bad guys are obviously taking advantage of AI technology and making it part of how they do things. Clearly, there are, everything from deep fakes out there for many, many years now, and other new technology that AI is helping to drive. So we want to, I think, ask a couple of key questions about, well, one, who is out there leaning into wanting to be a proactive partner, and two, who should be that maybe hasn't yet, and how do we identify and hopefully cultivate those relationships. So, and other things that could be done in the AI sort of proactive world. So more to come on that. I just wanted to throw that out there as a I think a good area for us to get into in the next episode or two. So I'm going to move to wrap it up here for today, but I'll open it back up to Keith and Tom. Anything else you guys want to share as we close out this first inaugural episode?
Yeah, I would just like to say that the discussion that we've had, it's been a great discussion. So thanks for inviting us to this, Dan, and putting it together. It's been really the whole discussion's been U.S. centric. So we've been talking about all this cool stuff happening in the United States. There are these same type of things happening overseas. So if you're listening to this podcast and you're not here in the U.S., don't despair. There's lots of really cool stuff happening. For instance, Japan has their JC3. I know the UK, Germany, other European countries have similar initiatives. A lot Southeast Asian countries. I mean, really all over the world.
Yeah.
There is this type of stuff happening. And so, yeah, look to your law enforcement partners in your country to help guide you as to who you should be engaging, and get involved with those volunteer information sharing initiatives. Thank
Right.
you.
Yeah, good point. And I think bringing in a few of our great partners, in those parts of the world for succeeding episodes will be a really impactful discussion. And again, we said the countries you mentioned, but also Ukraine has has a model, and I know they're doing some good things there as much as they can. But as you said, others, including South Korea, Australia, UK, there are a lot of really good things happening across the globe, and our buddies in Germany, obviously, a big part of that too. So more to come on those fronts. Keith, anything else you want to throw out?
Yeah, Dan, just again, thanks for the opportunity to come on board and talk about this. This is obviously a very important topic to the three of us, as we spent so many years trying to build these type of relationships and make an impact on the bad guys and make it worthwhile for private industry as well. So, hopefully this will continue and we'll be able to have many more robust discussions in the weeks and months to come.
And I look forward to that. And I'll speak for Eric and have him say, yeah, what he said.
Sounds good.
So thanks again, guys, for coming together. I know it's schedules are a little bit complicated, but thanks for making the time, and look forward to continuing the friendship and partnerships going forward. Thanks
Thanks,
again.
Dan.
Thank you, Dan.
Take care, guys.